piece, midpoint. Midpoint is something we will continually use over and over again. The midpoint of a segment is a point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. Midpoint. Mid meaning middle, point meaning point. So that means I'm at the midpoint. The other thing that it gives to you is a point, line, ray, or other segment that intersects a segment at its midpoint is said to bisect. That point, the line, ray, or segment, is called a segment bisector. So first off, B is a midpoint because it cuts it into two congruent pieces. And then segment bisector means this is the line that bisects it, so that's just the name of it. Okay, bisect, bi, two, secting, cutting it in half. All right. Using the midpoint, this is saying Q is the midpoint, so how do I find those distances? Well, think to yourself for a second. We just discussed what a midpoint was. What's a midpoint going to tell us? Well, a midpoint told me that if this is my midpoint, this section has to be congruent to this section. In putting in these tick marks, that's showing that they are congruent. So if they're congruent to each other, I would just set it up as an equation. I would put that line PQ is congruent to or equal to QR. So if that's the case, I can substitute in my expressions. So I have 6x minus 7 equaling 5x plus 1. Then I would just start solving. So I would subtract 5x, add 7, and I end up getting 8. Now, it's not asking me to find x, it's asking me to find all of these lengths. So I would have to plug all of that in. So for PQ, I would plug 8 back in there. So I get 48 minus 7, which is 41. Plug 8 back in here and get 41. And then PR is all the way across. So I could just add these two together and get 82. Alright, you're going to pause the video one more time and try the midpoint on the last question. So it tells you that U is the midpoint. So that means that TU is congruent to UV. So I can write that out if I want to. And then I can just plug in those expressions to help me solve. So then I would subtract 8x from over here, add 1 to over there, and then divide and end up with x equaling 3. Once again, not asking for x, so I would need to plug back in to find it. So I plug in 3. 3 times 8 is 24. Add on to it, I get 35. UV should be the same as that, so it's going to be 35. And then TV is going to be the double of those, so I get 70. So I'm just adding those two together. So once again, a lot of introductory stuff, but there is jam-packed in here with information that we will continue to use. Congruent, you will hear that word over and over. Midpoint, you'll hear that word over and over. Segment bisector, you'll hear that word over and over. On this side, you will use that segment addition postulate over and over. So even though there's a lot of stuff going on, I need you to closely pay attention and make sure that you know it, because I'm telling you folks, it will not go away.